our next presentation is, again, continuing on the theme of GFSI, is automating and accelerating audits against the GFSI recognized schemes. We actually have this presentation from end users as well as a technology supplier. I'd like to introduce Gary Nowacki, the CEO of TraceGains, as well as Bill Besson, the quality manager of Chelsea Milling Company, Jessica Dodd, the quality control manager of Specialty Commodities Incorporated, and Greg Rowe, the supply chain manager for Ottens Flavors. Gary?
Thank you, Rick. I'll just set the stage here very quickly. We've been talking a lot, obviously, the last day and a half about GFSI and FSMA, and a lot of discussion about the requirements with all the documentation that goes along with this. And so just one slide here before I turn it over to these folks is if you look at all these documents that you're forced to have to collect. What happens with a lot of companies that we've seen is you take that whole stack of documents and you put it in a file cabinet. Maybe it's a physical file cabinet like this. Maybe it's a virtual file cabinet where you're putting it into SharePoint or some type of application like that. But the bottom line is that the documents are tough to search and analyze and extract information and to get automatic alerts on. So with these new best practices that are emerging now, you have the ability to take all these different documents that are coming from all these different sources, whether it's supplier documents or documents you're creating on your receiving dock when there's a problem with incoming material, or whether it's lab test results. You have the ability to take all these documents now and extract all of the critical information right off the documents, put it into a database, and then once it's in a database, it becomes truly information, and the information becomes dynamic. And so then you've got the ability to have a 24/7 detection and compliance capability to alert you instantly if there's a non-compliance. You've got the ability to scorecard all the different suppliers and ingredients and items and trends, and you've got the ability to get automated alerts. So that's the promise of these new best practices that are emerging. And so I'm going to turn it over to Bill Besson from Jiffy Mix.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Bill Besson, and I work for Jiffy Mix. And a little bit about me. I graduated in 2003 from Saginaw Valley State University, small Division II college in Michigan. And from there, I went to work for Cargill, worked in the sweetener division at 2 different locations in Memphis and in Hammond for about 4 years before joining Chelsea Milling Company in 2007. And I've been with Jiffy Mix ever since. And this is just a little photo of our facility. It's just only about 3 years old now. That new office building, we have a new R&D center and a pilot plant in there. And we've been in business for over 110 years. We started out as the Chelsea Roller Mill, which is a flour milling company. And we actually still have our flour mill there, and we still mill a lot of our own flour we use. And we offer 21 different Jiffy mixes. Most people know us for our cornbread or corn muffin, but we also do make other mixes. And like it says, we're the complete manufacturer. We store our wheat, we mill the wheat into flour, we use that flour. We bring in 88 different other raw materials to make up those 21 Jiffy mixes. We also make our little blue boxes. We have a company called CNS down in Marshall, Michigan, which is about 40 miles from the plant. And we make our own little blue boxes. We manufacture and ship over 150 million pounds of Jiffy mixes every year. That's a lot of those little blue boxes. The product is available at over 30,000 retail stores and food service outlets. You can pretty much walk into any store and find our Jiffy corn muffin mix. Let's talk a little bit about the FSSC 22000 standard. It's a independent standard. It's owned by a nonprofit organization, and like Roger was saying, they have the ISO 22000, and then they added the PAS 220 for manufacturing, which is the direction we're going. And it's a certification of the management systems. It's not of a specific product. Encompasses the supply chain. It's solely focused on food safety. Like Roger said, there's very little quality, if any at all. And it fosters continuous improvement rather than just providing a snapshot. And why we chose to go this route was because it fits our organization. And whether you're choosing BRC or SQF or any of the other schemes out there, you have to do what's right for your company. And this just fits us. It's less prescriptive. We found that it's less prescriptive than a BRC or an SQF audit, which is one of the reasons that we chose it. So a couple of examples that are written into the standard that are challenges for us is incoming materials. It says they shall be inspected, tested, or covered by a COA. Delivery vehicles shall be checked to verify that the quality and safety of the material has been maintained. So you have to check your incoming trucks. And then you have to continually assess and monitor supplier conformance. So some challenges with those three requirements. We had a manually intensive process. Okay, we had a person down in receiving checking COAs against our specifications. And I've actually been at other facilities where they pay someone to sit in a room and all they do all day long is just look at the COA against the specs and then they file it if it's correct. And not only that, there's a challenge of different COA formats. It could be a PDF, it could be Excel, it could be Word, it could be faxed. And then manual records make for an intensive process to retrieve data to support your third-party audits. I've got a file cabinet in my office that's about 6 feet long by 5 feet high filled with nothing but COAs and supplier documents. Trying to find something can be challenging. Collecting up-to-date supplier documentation such as kosher certificates, data sheets, nutritional sheets, if you do organic certifications, things like that. And then once again, just combing through hundreds, if not thousands, and if you have a lot of suppliers, it could be tens of thousands of records when trying to assess a supplier's ability to meet the compliance. So how are we addressing these? We're working with a company called TraceGains, and we have their system on board, and it works 24/7. If you get a COA that comes in at 3 p.m., it doesn't make a difference. It could come in at 3 o'clock in the morning. It could come in whatever. The system is always on. It's always working. It's always going to check COAs that are being sent to the system, and that ensures that 100% of all supplier lots are checked against our specifications. If anything's out of spec, I get a notification, and the customer gets a notification before the product even ships. And loads are not accepted until we have the COA and it's being checked by the system. It's real easy to go back and look up past COA data and past truck inspections rather than sifting through a file cabinet to try and find something. Let's say an auditor comes in and he picks out a random raw material you have on the floor and says, okay, show me the COA for this, show me the truck inspection. It's real easy to go into the system and just type in that lot number, type in that shipment number, boom, all the information's right there instead of having to spend 15, 20 minutes going through a large file cabinet to try and find everything. So it makes it a lot easier. Because what's that auditor doing as you're going to look for that data? He's looking through everything else. And so it keeps them occupied with what the question was at hand. And it also sends out, like I said, the automatic e-notifications. Let's say you have a third-party audit that's about to expire. One of your suppliers, a third-party audit that's about to expire. You can send an e-notification to them that's saying, hey, your audit is about to expire or has expired. Please send us a new one. And you don't have to do anything because you can set up the system to do that for you. Same thing with kosher certificates. Kosher certificate expires at the end of May, automatically sends an email to that company. That company sends you a response with their new kosher certification. So it makes that a lot easier. And so finally, some of the benefits, we talked about them a little bit throughout the presentation, but rapid access to data needed during third-party audits. Continuous risk and performance evaluation of your own supply chain. So you can always continuously monitor, go back and look and see how your suppliers are performing. It fosters continuous improvement. There's reports that we use, like at the end of every month, we'll see how the supplier is doing as far as how are the truck inspections been, how are the COAs been coming in, and we also do a lot of internal testing too, some QA testing upon receipt. So we'll match up our results with what our suppliers' results are, and then we'll do some trending there. You know, maybe they're trending on the high end, but we'll be able to see that because we're also comparing the results. Provides a collaborative foundation, and the idea is you get fewer and fewer problems by working with your suppliers. And it's much easier to track product and truck rejections. I'm sure if you've had a third-party audit, you've had somebody come in and say, okay, let me see your truck rejections for the past 6 months. You know, you could pull it up real easy right here with a couple clicks of the mouse, rather than having to try and dig through a file cabinet to find your rejections. It just makes it easier. And then there's been a culture change. Our ingredient technician no longer spends her time checking COAs versus the specifications. She can spend her time doing other things, whether it be more testing or helping out with other food safety initiatives within the receiving area. And basically, we have a whole new relationship with our suppliers based on a mutual and synchronized data communications. So we're working well with our suppliers, and no supplier wants to send in a COA and have a rejection notice come or have something show up red. So they tend to work with you a little bit more. So that's all I have. Thank you. And I guess we'll do questions at the end. And next up is Jessica Dodd from Specialties.
Good morning. I'm Jessica, and I work at Specialty Commodities, and I'm here with you this morning to discuss some of the supplier documentation requirements of GFSI and how we're utilizing TraceGains to help us manage this. Since all of you here may not be familiar with our company, I just want to start off by telling you a little bit about us. Specialty Commodities is a global ingredient supplier. We import products from all over the world. We have distribution points across the U.S., and we also have a nut roasting and pasteurization facility in Northern California. We have a strong presence in the industry with over 25 years of experience and annual revenues exceeding $375 million. Not only do we work with all the major ports and handle logistics associated with importing, we also have nationwide warehousing, and we work with warehouses in New Jersey, Chicago, Fargo, Portland, Oakland, and LA. And we also have global partnerships in China, Turkey, Bolivia, and Peru. Under the Specialty Commodities parent company, which is our main import and distribution portion of our company, we have 3 other divisions. We have Specialty Food Ingredients, which is primarily run out of our plant in Lodi, California. And this division services or specializes in high-end nut processing as well as runs our pasteurization system. We have Specialty Pet Food, which works with all our major pet food clients, and Specialty Organics, which handles our organic line. Being a global ingredient company adds multiple challenges with respect to increased customer document requirements, requirements of GFSI, areas of FSMA. We're basically required to guarantee the products and processes of all the facilities that we source product from, and to also have working knowledge and documentation on file for every single plant that we source from and all the items that they produce. So just to give you an idea of what our documentation tracking efforts entail, we have 778 current suppliers, 243 of them that are foreign, and 216 companies that currently supply us with organic products. Our current item list is about 1,500 different items. We currently are maintaining 11 different item level documents and 7 supplier level documents. So as you can see, with the amount of suppliers and items that we handle and the documentation that we're requesting and reviewing, maintaining this paperwork is a significant job, especially considering we have a Department of Free. So some of the challenges that we are facing come from increased customer requirements, documentation requirements of GFSI, areas of FSMA like foreign supplier verification, and all of these areas have required us to assess how we were handling our documentation in order to make sure that we have the necessary documents on file and available, and that the documents that we did have on file were accurate and up to date. And having all this information on file has increased has sped up our vendor approval processes, sped up audits. Okay, so for the next few minutes, I want to talk about GFSI and our experiences. The GFSI certification scheme that we chose was IFS. Our plant in Lodi is currently certified to the standard, and we're also working on the IFS broker certification for the import and distribution portion of our company. We chose IFS because it has a focus on quality and food safety. We felt that we liked the fact that it was risk-based and non-prescriptive, and we also felt it an affordable option, having the opening meeting, document review, facility audit, and closing meetings all conducted in one audit. But again, overall, we just felt the IFS standard was the best fit for our company. The risk management and HACCP sections of IFS include a systematic and comprehensive risk management concept. It also requires that we are accounting for provisions of our production countries as well as destination countries. And being a global importer, having this in the standard is important to us, and also to have a documentation management system to handle all of this documentation is imperative. The IFS broker scheme also requires that risk management be assessed for both the production locations as well as all levels of the brokerage transactions. And here we are able to utilize TraceGains to maintain all of our supplier audits, or their audit reports, their HACCP plans, and their flow charts. So we have these easily available and we can review. There's also sections in IFS that we must include GMOs and allergens in our risk assessment. And again, the way TraceGains is set up, we're easily able to incorporate this into our risk assessment by item and by supplier. Okay, there's also several sections that address various product requirements, product specifications, and product development. IFS requires that we have current product specs on file at all times. With TraceGains, we are able to easily maintain all of our purchasing specs. We're also able to maintain all of our supplier specs and other product documentation, and having TraceGains automatically request these from our suppliers helps to ensure that the documentation that we do have on file is up to date. There's sections on purchasing, supplier approval, and monitoring. With TraceGains, we're easily able to show what suppliers we have for all of our items and their current status, whether or not all their documentation is on file, whether or not the documentation that they have on file is current, if all their products are coming in meeting our product requirements. There's sections on product packaging. We're required to maintain product specs on all the packaging that they use and ensure that their labeling is compliant. Product analysis. We need to have procedures in place to ensure that all the products coming in meet our requirements and that the product is tested according to requirements and that all these results are available on site. And with TraceGains, we're able to maintain all the documentation needed for all of our items in all of these areas. And then just on a final note, I know this is about GFSI, but using TraceGains has also helped us in all of our other certifications and areas of FSSC. For kosher, organic, and fair trade, I have a kosher audit, an organic audit, and a fair trade audit all next week when I get back to the office. And having TraceGains automatically requesting updated supplier certificates for us on a continual basis, I haven't had to spend this last month basically reviewing files to make sure they're all on current. I just look in TraceGains and I see that I have them all there, and it's kind of taken that last minute panic out of the way. Also, foreign supplier verification in areas of FSSC, including biennial registration. And this is an easy part of the FSSC regulations, but being an importer, we're required to guarantee that all of our foreign suppliers have completed this process, because if they hadn't, we were going to face delays and incur fees with all of our shipments we were trying to clear from them. So we used TraceGains to send out an easy 3-blank form to all of our suppliers where they just filled in their FDA number and that they had completed the process, and this helped us to ensure that we had updated registration for all of our suppliers and we didn't face any delays with any of our shipments. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Greg Rowe. I'm the supply chain manager with Ottens Flavors. I'd like to tell you a little bit about myself. I've been in the food industry for over 20 years. I worked with a company that's called Germantown, USA. We used to manufacture stabilizers and emulsifiers, pretty much sold to just about every dairy in the world. And then we got bought by a company called Donesco, who then got bought by a company called DuPont, just a small company. So at that point, when we got purchased, they offered me a job to move to the Midwest, and I turned that down and ended up working with Ottens Flavors. I have a broad background in operations. I pretty much have done just about anything you can imagine, really. I've done production planning, materials management, inventory control, procurement. And Roger, I do have an answer for you regarding that animal where that guy was in the butt. There is no mask. So I'm the kind of the guy that's caught in the detail of things. And I think that's what we're here to tell you, because there's some very, very large companies here talking about GFSI. And I'm kind of here to tell you kind of on the back end, because there's a lot of requirements. We deal with many, many multinational companies, and I'm here to tell you that that message is getting pushed all the way down the supply chain. So, you know, hopefully I can tell you a little bit about the challenges and some of the opportunities that I go through personally with some of these regulations. A little bit about Ottens. We've been in business for over 125 years. We are the people who help to make your food taste better. So we supply flavors into the marketplace. We're globally located. We have over about 300 suppliers. Our market segment are beverages, dairy, savory, bakery, and confectionery. We have chosen the BRC scheme. About 3 years ago, we had done both the GMA Safe and BRC. We were one of those crazy companies that were kind of beating ourselves up, and realized, looking at GFSI, we said, you know what, we're going to go with the BRC. For us, we realized it was globally recognized, and so kind of that's the format we have. Just as Jessica said, we have next week is our BRC audit that we have. So looking at this, these are some of the things that BRC requirements have, right? This is a real high level. There's a couple, number 3 and 4, the food safety and quality management system site standards are some of the things that I would like to focus on. But what I want to say is, you know, in the past 5 or 10 years, it's been crazy how much it has changed from regulatory bodies. I mean, you know, we have the FDA, the USDA, the DEA, the DOT, the FAA. You say the FAA, we're so close to Philadelphia International Airport, the FAA comes in and checks our documents. Kid you not, they come in. So, you know, there's a whole slew of regulatory bodies that are coming in and looking at the facility. And that's a good thing, because they want to make sure that, you know, you're in compliance with the certain standards. So the first thing I want to talk about is document management. Currently, we have, as I said, about 300 vendors. We have about 1,500 active raw materials. When you break all that down, that equates to about 60,000 documents that we're tracking. And one of the things for us, one of our department's been growing over the years is regulatory, because we're trying to trace all these documents and track it. Well, we realized, you know, with the economy the way it is, we can't just keep throwing bodies at some of this. We've got to try to do something to automate our process, that we've got to make it better. So in searching, I came across TraceGains about 2 years ago, and they've been a huge help in helping us track our documentation. So, you know, they've been able to, as both Bill and Jessica alluded to, you know, we can have these documents. They know when these documents will expire. There's an email notification that goes out to my vendor and says, hey, by the way, it's a proactive approach. Hey, by the way, in 10 days, this document's about to expire. Can you please send me an updated document? You know, we're probably not unlike a lot of you guys out there. We had these documents on network drives, in filing cabinets. They were all over the place. And really, you know, when an auditor comes in and says, hey, I need this document, we were scrambling all over the place. Now we have one single location that all these documents reside. We know we can do a gap analysis, we can run a report on these documents, and it can tell us, hey, this document's about to expire, send out an e-notification to my vendor, and then we can collect that. And so we have a place that they all can be collected. The second thing is management suppliers of raw materials and packaging. So, you know, one of the things we've been really working, trying to work more and more aggressively with is our whole supplier compliance program. And we have worked in conjunction with TraceGains to help us monitor and really kind of put that in so that we can communicate. I mean, one of my hopes are, really want to go back to my vendors on a quarterly basis and share their scorecard with them. But more than share the scorecard, if there's areas in which they may need improvement, areas in which maybe they're lacking, that there can be more of a communication and collaboration. My idea behind this is not to use this as a hammer. I think sometimes scorecards are used as a hammer, but it's really an educational tool in my mind. It's to help bring these suppliers along, help educate them, and help to show them kind of some of the things they may need to improve on. The third thing is control of non-conforming products. You know, one of the requirements we have is COAs. We need, before we will even receive a product, we need a COA. And this can be a daunting task with as many materials that we're getting in and day out. And so I'll tell you a story. Before we had TraceGains, we were dealing with a broker, and the manufacturer had sent the broker the COA, and the COA was correctly stated. However, it was out of our specification. Well, the broker didn't catch that. They sent it in. They sent it in to us. Our QC department looked at it, and they didn't catch it. Well, we ended up making product, and the product was out of spec. So long story short, we kind of did a root cause analysis and realized it had to do with this particular material. Now, if at that time we had TraceGains implemented, this would have never happened, because the fact that they could digitize this COA and put it into our system, it didn't rely on a human being reading a document. It would have automatically looked at the specification and rules and said, no, this isn't going to work. So that has been a huge help for us. I mean, it's been a proactive system. So when they send that in, even if they send a COA prior to the material showing up, we can automatically, with an email blast, go back to them and say, I'm sorry, but this material is out of specification. We cannot accept that. So that's been a huge help for us. The fourth one is dispatch and transport. And, you know, we're not like the rest of you guys in that, you know, we've got to do truck inspections. We've got to make sure that they're clean, they're odor-free, that they come in locked. There's certainly security measures that we've got to take into consideration, and we got to look at that. So we basically have again worked with TraceGains in developing. A guy used to have a manual receiving document. They go back and take, and in that receiving document go throughout the organization. Now he kind of just types this in, and if there's a non-compliance, right, it immediately, an email notification will immediately go out internally to whoever is responsible for that non-conformance. And at that point, that non-conformance can be dealt with whatever vendor it is. The great thing about it is all the information is there for you. I mean, it'll tell you the PO number, tell you the product number, tell you the carrier. So you don't have to go dig through all this. It's all right there. It tells you. So in summary on some of this stuff, we look at document control. We're doing this through automation. We need that. We can't just continually throw bodies at it. We need to automate it. There's electronic notification. We have an internal review process, so when that document comes in, it then goes to, it's notified, the regulatory department's notified, and we go through a review process. And that review process can be either accepted or rejected. And if it's rejected, then there's another email notification coming. There's specific business rules for each document. So it doesn't have to be generic, it can be very specific. Depending on the time and amount of energy you want to put into it, you can have certain specific documents. We have vendor documents and we have vendor by part documents. And those are very important because we have different business rules for each set of documents. So the supplier compliance program we're talking about, there's 3 things that I'm looking for. Each company is different, but we as an organization are looking for the quality. And within quality, we look at shelf life. We want to understand we have shelf life requirements. So when material comes in, that has to have so much shelf life. For an object, obviously, we want to make sure our product's free and clear, and there's nothing intrusive in that. If any product's out of spec, any damaged containers, and is there proper labeling? Is there proper security seals on the packaging that we're requiring? Documentation, talk a little bit about COA. PO confirmation, it's another thing TraceGains does for us is when we enter a PO into our ERP system, it will send out a PO acknowledgement. We require PO confirmation within 24 hours. So that goes out to our vendor. They can click on a link, and if there's any changes that are made, then they make those changes. They get sent back to us to notify us. And the last thing is service. So on-time deliveries, are they compliant with our security policies? Are the trailers locked? So through this, we want to develop a schema that we can come up with to say, okay, how are we going to rank these vendors? So that we can then go back and educate them on each one of these compliances and saying, hey, here's where you're maybe lacking. You can maybe see some trends on some of that stuff. You know, ensuring out-of-spec materials managed, prevent release, COAs, sent to central. We basically have it, kind of Bill said it's 24/7. We have it sent to a central email box. We got real tricky with this. We called it COA@ottens.com. It's pretty easy to remember. So for suppliers, boom, that's where they do. They zip the email. It's electronic, you know, trying to get away from all this paper that we're dealing with. It's electronic, gets digitized, and it's there. So we don't have all these papers that we need to look through. There's proactive approval and notification to vendor and supplier regarding material being sent in. And obviously, we won't release a product until we have received that COA. I mean, I will say Ottens, I know coming from the company I came from into Ottens, I was like, these guys are crazy. We're you know, I know there's some statistical analysis on approving materials and how it does. Ottens, basically, I mean, we're strong believers in quality and customer focus, and we test everything. I mean, if we have to put on a GC or mass spec, or depending on material, we go through rigorous testing, all of it. Last thing is dispatch and transport. We had, like I say, we had our receiving personnel going in. There's some automation going to that. There's automatic email notifications coming through for non-compliance on that. And then those appropriate people are getting that notification. So, you know, in summary, for us, we really gained a huge amount of automation. It's the only way we really could deal with it. I mean, after adding on some of these people, we really had to automate the process. As I said, we did not have to increase our workforce, but we were able to actually do more with less. I will say TraceGains have been very flexible with our business needs, and you know, you need a service provider who is flexible, because guess what? The game keeps changing, and it's going to continue to change. Standards continue to change, and if you don't have an organization, and if you don't have a package who's not flexible, then you're in trouble. So, you know, I can stand up here and say, you know, I've worked with TraceGains on many, many things, and they've been very flexible in meeting those needs. It's been great. We have much more better reporting capabilities. You know, we can do gap analysis, and you know, as any manager, right, you can make better decisions if you have better data. So, you know, as you see the data coming through, it helps you to communicate. So this is kind of, this is a perspective of what I've going through on my end, kind of affecting GFSI and some of the ask. I know a lot of us here are being asked of some of these things and how do we upkeep them. Some of the organizations here are much bigger than some of the rest of us. So we just got to really think a little bit out of the box of how we can deal with these things. What can we do to be compliant? Because it's here to stay. I mean, it's not going away. It's only going to get stricter and stricter in a lot of senses. Thank you.
Thanks, Greg. Just to wrap up, and then we can open it up with whatever time is available for questions, and just let us know, Rick, how we're running. Just one summary. We know there's all these different standards. If you just take the standards and start to match them up, the different GFSI scheme, you'll see a lot of consistency. So whatever the challenges are, as you can see from 3 companies here who have adopted 3 different schema. Lot of ways that you can automate and move to these best practices. What is key is having a network and having the ability to manage all these documents that come in from all these different suppliers. And what's been important for us too is all the customers who've worked with us to make this solution better. And in addition to these customers, I just wanted to point out a few of you who are in the audience today. I know I see Bob from Bay Valley Treehouse, and I know Brian from Bay Valley Treehouse was here yesterday. Howard from TopGo, also a TraceGains customer, and Bill and Sharon from OSI, also using the system. But I think the key here is, if you're a very large company like Bimbo or Gallo, you might have the resources where you can throw people at these regulatory and document problems. If you're a smaller or a medium-sized company, you just might not have those resources. So just to wrap up, in addition to covering, basic requirements, whether it's FSMA or GFSI, there might be return on investment opportunities to do things as part of automating these best practices so that you can enhance supplier negotiations, so that you can reduce waste, so that maybe you can even bring new products to market faster. So these solutions offer some upside as opposed to just doing them because you have to do them for safety or quality or FSMA or GFSI. And with the ability to deliver these applications in the cloud, it means they can be implemented a lot faster, and your IT department does not need to get involved, which is a big advantage for a lot of companies. So just to remind everybody, please stop by, and 2 of you are going to take an iPad home at the end of the conference. So there's a quick little 2-minute test that's fun to compete in, so please stop by. And if you have detailed technical questions about TraceGains, we can take those at our little tabletop and go into whatever level of detail you might want. Okay, so